Is this working? Okay, now I just have to test how loud my keys sound. Sounds good to me. Okay, so today, that sounds loud. It just played through the video. That sounds so loud. That's got to be annoying. I have DOS keyboard, cherry brown switches. They're not blues, but they sound like blues. So that's what we're working with. So today I was doing mostly development work, and people ask me all the time like how you make websites and how it works. So I figured I would just stream myself doing it since I'm kind of bored and this is kind of a boring development process. So working on today a checkout. Wait, what was I doing? Yeah, checkout. Working on checkout, final step of an e-commerce site that we're building from the ground up using React and Redux. And yeah, so you won't be able to see my debug window, which is kind of annoying, but I haven't been able to figure out a better way to do that. Plus, I don't think anybody will watch this anyways. So last time I checked, there was a bug about something. Obviously, you see the loading wheel. Let's just give this a whirl. Come on. My computer's really slow when I'm doing this. Come on. Come on. Might have to pause and figure out why this is so slow. Stop. It might just be that the stream is just crushing my CPU. I might have to get a new computer. That's terrible. There we go. It's decaf, so I don't even get the real stuff. Come on. I'm waiting for that thing to say listening. Ah, there we go. Listening on port 4400. So this I'm looking at right now is the actual like the browser, so that's why I'm like staring at it. So for checkout, we're gonna use like this hash step functionality, so we don't have to actually reload any URLs. We'll just use like hash. So like hashtag measurements, hashtag shipping, so we can go through the checkout step by step without actually loading new URLs. It's just ultra slow right now. Ultra slow. Okay. There's a bug in checkout reducer. Local storage nonce. I don't know where the word nonce comes from, but it's the word that I think PayPal and Square use it to describe like an encrypted credit card. I have no idea where it comes from. It's a terrible word. Okay, wait, here we go. A lot of pressure right now, a lot of pressure. Nonce violates contract. Expected nonce got promise. What? Oh, fudge, I put that in a promise. I put all the local storage functions in a promise, just because I figured I might want to sub it out for an actual request to the server. Instead, I just have everything stored locally in cookies, but if I ever wanted to, that would make it easier. So that's going to make this a pain in the ass. I'm going to convert all these to promises too. F it. Where is this being used? Okay, we're gonna convert all these to promises, and just because then, if later I decide to not host this information, the client information on the browser, if I want to save it in the server using some kind of token, it's an easy process to sub out. I don't have to worry about like adding any new code. I would just sub it in right here to the local storage file. So I'll just make a new promise, and it's going to return immediately, so it won't matter. I guess I can just do it like this. And this get value thing I'm not a super fan of. I'm not sure why I wrote this function. Why did I write this? Get value. See, this is terrible code. It should have comments. I'm going to put something right now. Get value returns the value. Oh, I guess if it's parsed as a, okay. Stored in local storage. Converting a JSON string to an object if necessary. Oh, this is a stupid function. So it converts it to a string if necessary. If the object is not found, or parsing throws an error, and a default value is provided. Local storage will save the default value. This is a confusing class with like 3 line or function with only 6 lines of code. Save the value and return the default. Save the default value. Fuck, come on. Return, oh, I wasn't supposed to swear. I was specifically asked not to. Okay, so that's is client is like a static variable that just determines if the type of document is undefined, and if that is, like, we just assume that's client. Yeah, whatever. I don't like this. What is this? So if it's not client, return the default value. And client means like we're on the browser, like the person who is navigating to this website, that browser, Google Chrome or whatever, Safari, if you want to be a dick, that is the client. So only if we're on the browser, not if we're on the server. It's like a difficult abstraction to communicate. I've never been able to do it well. Try to parse the value in local storage. I do this all the time. I write these really confusing functions, and I have no idea what they mean. And this is terrible, too, because, see, this is a flow type check. I'm sure I'm using a flow type check here. Yeah, and these get removed from the parser, from the compiler, in production mode. This is a terrible function. Okay, so if not type check value. What is this? How about just if not value? If we get some kind of, you gotta be careful here, because value could technically be 0 for storing like cart quantities or something. So we're gonna check if nil. I'm using Lodash for that, and it's just gonna check like null or undefined. So if it's nil, null, or undefined. Then we'll set the item. to the default value if it exists. See, but I don't like that default value thing, because what if it's just a string? Why am I doing this? I guess this is only for objects. Only used for objects. Not strings or numbers. So if it's nil, set the item, the default value, and we'll set value equals default value. And then we'll return it. Cool. This is a terrible function. I'm going to get rid of this. Anyways, what was I doing? Oh yeah, I was going to convert everything to promises. So checkout reducer, let's start with get measurements. No, I started with something else. Where did I start? 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 Oh. 90%. Oh, there it is, in get phone. Okay. So I'm going to return a promise. That's going to resolve to a phone, or maybe null. And then, fuck this. Why do I have that in there? This is a terrible, terrible thing. Okay, so get value, get phone. Oh, okay, so I am setting it to an empty phone. So it's always going to return a phone, whether it's empty or not. Cool, so what I'm doing here is I want to use promises, but I'm not sure in what capacity I'll need them in the future. So I'll just resolve it immediately to whatever the value is returned by get value. So get phone, and then I'm sure I use, yeah, see I use it in set phone here too. I'm going to return a promise from this with phone. So if not client, question mark phone. Current phone equals get phone. Okay. This dot get phone. Dot then. So then we have a phone. This little thingy here just tells me what type this variable is. So it's saying, I mean, I have no idea any level of competency I should be explaining this, but this little thing tells me like this variable is going to be a phone. Yeah, phone. So then we have the phone. Const new phone is going to equal current phone, which is actually, wait. Is going to be the current phone merged with the phone. That's what this dot 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 syntax means. Why is it not happy with what I'm doing? What are you doing? Typo? That's not, no, that's PHONE? I don't care. WebStorm, great software, terrible execution. Alright, and so then I'm just going to return, well, local storage.set item, stringify phone, and then return promise.resolve new phone. Cool, and now this uses promises. So I get the phone, then I have the new phone, I merge the new phone with the old phone. Oh, that's my issue. Or wait, is that my issue? Why is this green? It's driving me insane. Yeah, there you go. Okay, I merge the old phone with the new phone. I set the item in local storage, and then I return the new phone value that I found. Okay, I'm going to move this down here. That way it can be like, not sure if that's creepier or not. No, that's way creepier. I'm gonna keep it up here. Okay. Cool. So one thing now uses promises. Let's change address. So instead of an address, this is going to return a promise of an address. So now we're going to return promise.resolve this.getValue. Oof. I tried some smoked tequila last night, and like the taste is combined with this coffee. Oh, just thinking about it. Okay, so I resolve the get value address, clone deep, empty address. Yeah, that's pretty good code. Yeah, I like that. That's a good job. Okay. So, do I check if client? Yeah. So set address. If not client, so now we're going to return a promise. And, like, there's no reason to return a promise from a setter. I've just, like, seen it done a couple different places, and I kind of like it. Sometimes I use that value. You can chain values together. Like, immutable has that. You set something, and you can just chain a bunch of stuff together. So, promise.resolve undefined. And the question mark means, like, it's either going to be an address or it's going to be undefined or null. Not the same thing, but kind of the same thing. Okay, so we're basically going to do the exact same thing we did with the phone. It's weird to, like, speak my thoughts out loud versus, like, playing them in my head. It's, like, much harder. I don't know. It's really hard. It's really hard to, like, talk and type at the same time. Like, when I've had to do coding interviews and they call you over the phone and, like, they're already not happy because they have to do a coding interview, and they ask you to, like, write some code, and, like, they're listening to you over the phone and they're waiting to hear you talk. It's really it's, like, impossible to do. Try to type with someone looking over your shoulder. It's literally impossible, and that's what this feels like right now. It's really hard. So this code looks, like, super familiar. This code looks, like, legitimately almost identical to the set phone, which, like, fine, that's cool, but now I'm just, like, repeating code. And see, now the downside is, okay, so now I decided to convert to promises. If I had kept this code in, like, one place, like, kept it all together, then I wouldn't need to, like, change every single function I have. Like, right now I'm going to have to change set address and set measurement and set cart, all that shit. I'm going to have to change all of it. And that's, like, super annoying. That's not good. That's, like, the last thing you want to do. You want to try to, like, minimize code reproduction and instead promote code reusability. So I think what I might do instead here, I know I complain about that get value function, but I'm going to make this set private. This little underscore means it's private, but in JavaScript there's not really a private. I mean, there's not a private keyword, but there's private, but not private keyword. So I'm going to change this set to do this kind of functionality. And I think, I've actually never done this before, but I think you can use generics with flow functions. I'm going to check that out. Let's just see. Announcing bound polymorphism. That sounds good. Polymorphism is a terribly confusing way to say two things do the same thing, but in different ways. That was not better. It's fine. Bound the type parameters is extremely useful for writing functions and classes that need some constraint on their type parameters. Flows bounded polymorphism like this. What if you want T to not range over all types? This is not what I'm talking about. This is not This code does not type check? This code does not and should not type check? I don't know if I agree with that. Alright, forget that. I'll just return a promise. So, what we're going to do is take like all this code, and we're going to put it down here. And now we're just going to take the word phone out of everything. This is going to need a getter, which is going to be a type function, which will return a, how does it work? It's like function returns a promise and syntax. So now we're going to call getter. See, there goes phone. Getter. Mother effer. Sometimes my computer just like stops accepting keyboard input, so I have to like move my screen around. It's really annoying. So we'll do getter and then current value. We can't type analyze this, but meh. Okay. New value, current value. Oh, there's the old value. Oh, and here's the value. Say this new, call this value. Value. And let's change this to set storage objects. Because if this is a string, then I think we are in trouble. This is going to be of type object. Like we can't, if this is a string, did I spell storage wrong? God, it always does that. It tells me I spelled something wrong, and I'm a terrible speller, so I believe it. Okay, so stringify. Ooh, I had a bug there. Good thing I changed this. New value, and then new value. Boom. Now, I'm not sure like the technical programming term for it, but our functions are like generic. And so now we can just like throw this thing in anywhere. So let's redefine. What is this angry about? What is the green light? I've never even seen that. Adjust code style settings. Oh shit, no. Okay, so now we can go to phone. I'm not sure if this is blowing anybody's mind, or it's like so obvious that I should have done this to begin with. Set storage object, and the getter is this.getPhone, and the setter is, or the value is phone. Boom. Now, instead of having to do all that stuff in set address, like basically write the exact same code. Oh, you know what? I need a default value specified here, didn't I? I need a key. I need a key here, which has to be of type string. And sometimes I do a search to make sure that I don't have the word phone anywhere. It's like a really terrible way to make sure I'm not pulling code into this generic function. Okay, cool. So now I set key. What is this green underline? What is that? Convert parameters to objects? No, I don't want to do that. Set storage object. Phone. Phone key. This.getPhone. Boom. Now I go to set address and I can just say, oh, I got to return this. I want to return the promise that's created, or else it'll yell at me. Oh. Ah, that's pretty cool. Okay, so now I'm going to return this dot set storage objects. Value is address. Not good parameter names. Key is address key. And the value of getter is this.getAddress. Okay, so this is also a problem that I noticed. Like I wrote this function, right? And it's a good function. It's an amazing function. And I haven't put any comments in it because I don't know if I'm going to keep it or not yet. And its API is so subject to change. Like I added that key value I didn't know. If I would have created comments right when I made that function, I'd have to edit the comments so that I could add the key value. And like, that's 90% of the reason why I don't comment code, is because when I write a function or create a variable or something, I don't quite know if I'm going to keep that variable. Like, it's a lot of freestyle. Like, it's not like a linear step. I don't say like, you know, I'm not a machine. I can't be like this needs to be done. So it's a little more like loosey-goosey. So I I never know when to comment. And by the time that I've decided that this is a good function and the API is solid, I've like moved on from the fact that I've created it. So I come back to it and I'm like, why does this code not have any comments? So like I don't know. I don't have a good metric to say this is when you comment code, but I'm just going to comment this right now. So this sets a value in local storage. And again, I'm feeling lazy right now. I'm not confident in this function, so my comments are going to be terrible. Okay, wait, so get address. And so I've also debated, this is like kind of a verbose class, set address, set phone, set email, get email. And anytime I want to add something, I have to basically add two new functions. I've thought about adding like a default set or get method, and then you specify the key of what you want, but it just won't type check as well in the IDE, which, you know, whatever. I cheat a little bit because I use an IDE, but I just kind of like, sometimes it's nice to be verbose in the way that you declare functions. Okay, so what was I doing? Set address, set measurement. Cool. So now turn this dot set storage objects. So now we don't have to like copy that code. Value is measurement. The key is measurement key. And local storage is just like cookies. I'm like saving cookies to your browser. I'm saving things to the client's browser. And the getter is this dot get measurement. Measurements. Nope, make sure not to call it. Cool, so boom, 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 boom. And you know what? Yeah, this is okay. This is like hard to look at. I don't like that very much. Like literally 90% of this is just making sure that you can read what you actually wrote. You know, it's okay. Get measurement, set measurement. What is this doing? Oh, get cart. That's complicated. So, this function is intimidating to me. Although it looks a lot like get value. I'm going to split. This is like I now have two editors. One on top, one on bottom. Wait, so what does get value look like? So let's see. If it's not client, we return default value. We try to parse what's in there. Ooh, we warn here. That is a good idea. Error reporter is a class that I use to wrap around my error reporter that just like sends messages to a server to say this error occurred, you should be aware of it. It's the only way to know if a client crashes rather than instead of somebody telling you like, yo, your app doesn't work. So I'm gonna move this down here. And I'm going to change cart to key. I don't need this actually. Oh, I like that idea too. So value equals null. So it looks like I can just turn this into get value. Because see, this code is exactly the same. I mean, these two functions, you can't see, but I'm pointing. These two functions, I have these two functions. This, oh, you can't see my mouse. Oh. Well, okay. Get value and get cart are exactly the same code, just one has the word cart and one does not. So get value is, the key is cart session key. The default value is not a big fan of doing this, not a big fan of defining these objects in line, but whatever. Cool, and then boom, done. Get cart, set cart. And now does that look like my set value? Oh, you know what? Oh, I like that much better. But see, I made that mistake. Now I'm going to resolve the value, whatever the value they provided me, instead of undefined if it's not the client, which doesn't matter. But like, I don't have to change it now on every single set measurement, set email, set name. I don't have to change all of those. Just one step. So let's see if I can replace this dot set storage object. Value is cart. Key is cart session key. Type. And what was the last one? Getter. Wait, why do I need a getter? Oh. See, now things are gonna get out of hand because now in cart I'm not merging the old and the new values. I'm resetting the values. So now, like, this function's getting, like, this is what I'm talking about. I had to change the API, and now this function's getting out of hand. So in cart, in the other functions, in like address and measurements and stuff, I'm merging whatever I set and whatever the new value is. So like if I set an address and the old value has a city of Pittsburgh and a state of Pennsylvania, and the new one just has a city of Pittsburgh, the new object will retain, the new object will be city Pittsburgh, state Pennsylvania, because I'm just, bad example. If the old one has city of Pittsburgh, state Pennsylvania, the new one has city of Baltimore, the new value will be city of Baltimore, state of Pennsylvania. So it just merges the objects rather than overwriting them instead of the value just being city of Baltimore. But in the cart's case, I want to completely overwrite the old cart with the new cart. Yeah, so in that case, I'm just going to do this. Beep, beep, beep. Beep. Return promise dot resolve value. How about that? But now the problem with this function is that there's like 4 parameters that are seemingly unrelated and are in a completely random order. Anytime you get above like 2 parameters to a function, I guess this applies to almost all programming languages, strictly IMHO, which is just programmer talk for, in my humble opinion, which means I'm about to be an asshole. You have to convert it into like a bag of parameters or an object of parameters. It's just too complicated right now. So now if I, in like, a month, look at this code, and I see set storage object, cart, session key. Okay, I can kind of figure out what those are for. Okay, like what the F is this true thing? This makes no sense. So without looking into the code of set storage object, it's really impossible for me to tell. It's impossible for me to tell what those parameters are doing. That's called a white box approach. The key is to have a black box approach. Like, I don't need to know what set storage object does. I just know that it does something to set the storage object, and I don't know how it works. I just know it's like a magic black box. You put something in, you get something out. All of that code is like in the black box. I don't know why it's called a black box, but white box is the opposite. So instead, we're going to convert these parameter lists into a bag of parameters is the design pattern. Design patterns are just a fancy way of saying this is how you do something. Yeah. So set storage object. How long have I been doing this for? I'm moving really slowly. How long has this been happening? 36 minutes? Oh my god. Jeez. This is, okay, so convert these. I saw this actually nifty thing. Wait, I want to see. Convert parameters to objects. All right, I'm going to just convert them myself, and then I'm going to try that later. So let's just copy and paste this thing over here. Text messages. Copy and paste this here because I'm curious what that does. Just I'm going to close this editor window. Okay, so now I'll keep that one open. That was kind of handy. Okay, so again, working on setCart, I'm not happy with these 4 parameters. So I'm going to convert these into a bag of parameters. So params objects. Now, what I'm saying is this params value is going to be an object, but I want to flesh that out a little bit more, so I'm actually going to define a type for what that params is. Params is. Type set. Okay, so define that up here. So I'm going to define a type for these set params, right? So the params are going to be, looking at my original function, let's call it value, which is going to be an object. And this I will annotate, the value to set or merge into the original value. The, what else? Key, string, which is the key for the value. I can't explain that any better. Getter, which is a, Ten's walking down the street. Getter, which is a function which returns a promise. The function to get the original promise. And override. This is the one that really screwed me. Not necessary to provide override. Indicates if the new value should completely... Oh, I switched my keyboard. Is that weird? It completely override. I'm using the Mac keyboard. I don't know why I do that. I love having 2 keyboards available. It's like you're just jamming on this one, and then you just kind of want to get personal, and you go for, yeah, override. What was I doing? Indicates that the new value should completely override the old value or merge with it. Okay, so I defined this type, and that just means that like the object's going to have these values, these attributes to it. So now params is going to be of type set param. Params. I should specify if like you don't know JavaScript very well, this is probably not a good start because like this uses like next gen JavaScript, which is good, but it's hard to learn at first. Okay, cool. So now I can pull these values out of the set of this params object out of the bag. Right, and so this is just a fancy way. I could do this, or instead I could do this. You get it. I could define each of those values, in a separate line, or I can just use this fancy, this is a really cool name. It's like deconstructing or destructing syntax. It's pretty sweet. This coffee's cold, so. Oh, that one was too hot. Still have that tequila flavor. Okay, so this is sweet now. Sweet. This is sweet now because instead of having to specify these parameters like in this weird nonsensical order and having no idea which parameter corresponds to which value, now I specify them like this. Let's just get rid of these. Let's just... So now I specify them like this. So now value is cart, key is cart session key, getter is this dot get cart, and what was it? Override. See, now if I'm not sure, I can just look at the type definition. Boom, override. Boom. Override is true. And this is so much better because now I can clearly see set storage object. If I didn't look at the set storage function, I can just see value. Not the best name, but I can kind of infer what that means. Key, okay, I can kind of infer what that means. Getter, okay, override, true. And if I'm unsure, I can just look at the type definition for what each of these parameters means. Sets the new value, key, and I never even need to look at this code, which is confusing and stressful, and you don't need to look at this ever. So that's the benefit of having this bag of parameters. We've gone from this, which is what do these parameters even mean, to clear annotations on what each parameter means. The downside of this, though, is if you have a really simple function that takes one parameter, or something really easy, something small. 3 parameters is probably pushing it, but you don't need to go with the whole bag of parameters pattern. It's just too much. You want to be as fast as possible when you develop, so you don't want to mess with that. Cool. Now, again, this function that I started with as maybe a good idea, I've changed its entire API again. Also a reason why I haven't put detailed comments into it. And now I have to go and change all of the other functions that call it. So again, this is always the problem. The question is well, why didn't you start with bag of parameters? Well, I didn't know that I was going to need bag of parameters. As you use the function, it kind of morphs and changes, and so you don't comment it, and it changes, and it updates, and it's like a dynamic process. It's not like you write things start to finish. And maybe I'm just not that good of a developer, and that's why I do that, but that's my process. I think it's a lot of people's process. I think that's why there's not a lot of commenting codes. It's annoying to write. Commenting codes. It's not, I don't say codes, I just say code. Okay, so now I'm going to find all usages of this and change it to this more verbose syntax. Again, more lines doesn't necessarily mean bad code. So yeah, I'm writing more lines of code here. I have to increase the amount of space each function call takes, but it's so worth it because I can just see so clearly what each of these parameters means. And the whole point is you never know when you're going to need to change something. So the more open you make something, the easier it is to change. The other benefit of bag of parameters is now, if I want to add a new parameter, let's say I want to add a callback, so I can know instead of using a promise when setter is done. I can just add it to the bag of parameters. I don't have to tack it onto this parameter list. And I can the order doesn't matter, right? So a callback might be a weird thing to specify as the first or the second function because, well, I'll show you that syntax, but the idea is that it just lets you add and remove parameters really easily. I made a lot of promises there. I'm not going to keep any of them. Okay, so set storage object. This is a dangerous thing to do, but I'm copying code. Set storage object, value, address, key, address key, getter, this.getAddress. Simple, rustic. Set storage object. I'm not copying this time. That was too dangerous. I never know when I'm going to leave it an address in and it'll ruin my day. Getter. And like the cool thing is, so these type parameters aren't required by the JavaScript compiler. They get removed, in fact. But what's cool about them is they'll throw an error if something goes wrong, and that's like you want that so badly, so badly. Because if you find an error, the hard way to find an error is like you look on your page, and something doesn't look right or it doesn't function as you expected. That's like impossible to find the error that way. That takes forever. It could be anything. We can get rid of this code. A much easier way to find an error is to like throw errors in your code or type annotate your code so that if something unexpected happens, instead of the program just continuing as it was but kind of failing silently, it throws this big loud error and is like, hey, your error is right here. Like, you know, this is where something went wrong. Update it. And I do that even in production. I always keep my errors even in production because I would much rather have a client have an unexpected experience and me know how to respond to that than have them have something unexpected happen and the web page continues to work, but something is off. That's the downside of throwing errors, is your site basically stops working completely. Or can. Depends on the error, I guess. God, hot in here. Whew. Hot in here. Okay, so set and get email. I'm not going to mess with the setter and getter because this is just a string value, and come on, it's just a string value. Set name and get name, same thing. Set address marker, oh yeah, we'll mess with that. Okay, cool. This dot underscore, we can get rid of. I'll leave that up there. I usually work in like a giant window, like because this thing is like it's like it looks like this. I'm afraid to pull the cords out, but one giant tall monitor and one like long wide monitor. So I usually work in like a giant window with like 8 tabs open, but in this you can't see that, so I had to use this small one. Okay, so set storage object. Params is value. Is marker key. Is marker key. Getter is this dot get address marker. That's the other thing I have to make sure to do is make sure I'm not calling any of these functions because my IDE, which is an acronym for what is that? What is it an acronym for? Integrated development environment. My IDE, aka this program that I'm using to type code right now, will sometimes throw in the parentheses after I type in a function, which will cause it to call instead of passing it as a variable, which would be bad. Set storage objects, getter, looks good. Set zip, zip, another example, wait. Set zip is another example of one that I'm not really gonna touch. Okay, so I think that's all of our setters where applicable converted to set storage object. Set storage object, set storage object. Cool. Okay, so you see how like we started with the idea of, I started with the idea, not like the royal we. Started with the idea of we have to convert things to promises, and then we noticed that code looked bad in the setters, and so you went and fixed the setters, and it's like you go down the rabbit hole, and you have to be careful how deep you go, because sometimes you can get like really deep, and you can get complicated in what you're doing, and it's hard to like unwind your way back up. So like now, like we went into the rabbit hole of adding promises to this local storage file, and then we went into the rabbit hole of using set value, and then we went into the rabbit hole of dark here. There we go. Then we went into the rabbit hole of, well, that was the rabbit hole we went into. oh, the bag of objects thing, and then we unwound from that, and then we did, now we're unwinding from the set value. So now we're going to go back to converting everything to use promises. So this thing, already good. Cart uses promises, fantastic. Set measurements does not use promise. Well, at least it's not annotated to. We'll just annotate it. These are called annotations because like they're not part of the program. It's just like they're not any kind of logic. These little type things, this little colon whatever, this just means this is going to return a type of promise measurement map. It's just like a nice way to show a developer that's looking at it or tell the compiler that this is what it's expected to return. If for some reason I was to do this, it would throw an error. Something like error, expected measurement map, but got string. Or if I did something like this, no, expected, sorry, this would expect a promise. If I did this, it would throw an error something like, but got number, right? Hit shave. So I'm just adding these annotations that don't really affect the program. They just can throw errors if something were to go wrong, and it's just a nice way for me to keep track of what's what. I got the white lid, which is like super gross because it like ew. I should have gotten the black lid. So promise, we're good here. Oh, this is going to return a promise too. Oh, does get value return a promise? No, it doesn't. We'll have to update that. Okay, so like back down the rabbit hole. We were annotating everything with promises, and then I noticed that this get value, which is, let's change this. Get storage. Now you see our API is like kind of starting to take shape. We have set storage object and get storage object. Like these two verbose functions that we have these different parameters and that do like the dirty work of our local storage file. So now we have to go into the rabbit hole of converting get storage object, which is good. Like I encapsulation. Okay, so I encapsulated all that logic in a function. Encapsulation means like you're hiding information about how to do something in like a class or a function. I encapsulated all that logic in this function, which was great when I initially wrote this class, and I even commented it. I guess I did that when I started doing the stream. But it doesn't return a promise right now. So we're going to update that. So it's going to return a promise once we're done. So if we're not on the client, we're just going to do a return promise.resolve default value. Promise, a promise is just what it sounds like. It's like a commitment that this is going to be done at some point in the future. Okay, so parse the value. Cool. Now return promise.resolve value. That's it. Now we use promises, which is awesome. Oh, I forgot. I wanted to see what this did. Just ignore this. This is just for me. Kind of lame. I wouldn't use that. Okay. Cool. Okay, so now I have to update the comments for this code because like the function doesn't look like that anymore. And I could write a comment, but oh god, I just don't want to. It's just I don't know why that sucks so much. It just sucks. Just commenting code just sucks, but it's so valuable. I'm not gonna do it. What was I doing? What was I doing? What was it? Oh yeah, right. Okay, so converting to promises. Set phone, set email, get email. These are going to need to return promises. Return promise. Dot resolve email. Get email. What are you doing? Okay, get email. Where was I? Cool. If it's not client, I don't know about that. Why am I doing that? I was returning this empty string, and I don't know if I totally agree with that logic. Because, like, what if I'm looking? Yeah, I don't like that. I'm not about that. I am not about that. This is going to return a question mark promise string. It's like maybe a string, maybe undefined. Set name is going to be the same thing. Oh, forgot my little colon. I'm gonna switch keyboards, so get ready. Okay, so God, this keyboard is so much better than the default Apple keyboard, IMHO. But it just feels so much nicer. You should get one. Everybody should get one. Get name is going to return a promise, which is a question mark string. If I just call promise.resolve, the promise resolves to undefined. So that would be like returning a promise.resolve undefined. Same thing. Does the exact same thing. Cool. Oh God, this is so repetitive. Set address marker. I gotta return this. Wait, tell me this doesn't return a default value. Wow, I'm really not about that. Sorry, that's probably annoying. I'm sorry, I won't do that. So, okay, so I paused there for a minute because I realized that a bug could probably occur. So in my getter, could that be a bug? In my getter, if I don't provide a default value, instead of returning undefined, like you would expect if you didn't provide a default value to the getter, that it would return undefined. But my function right now, by default, has just an empty object as the default value. And I don't like that. That could be really unexpected. Do I go back down to the rabbit hole and fix that? No, I've been too off track. It'll be fine. I'll fix it later. Okay, so set zip and get zip. These look good. Oh, this is a much smarter way to do this. Get zip. This looks good. Set nonce and get nonce. Nonce. Looks good. Wait. Wait a minute. Let's use our fancy new syntax here. If we're on the client, set storage objects, params, we're looking at value, nonce, key, nonce, session key, getter, don't need to provide. This is another good point. If I'm setting override to true, there's no reason to provide a getter. So now instead of getter being required, I'm going to make it optional. Cool. What doesn't it like about this? Remove unnecessary return? Why is this unnecessary? Whatever. Good. And I have a clear. So for the nonce, I added this clear function. Yeah, which is fine. Okay, so I just want to see. So in this get storage object, I'm not sure if I'm all about this thing. Oh, F. What was this before? Get storage object. I'm getting rid of this. Getting rid of this default value. It's just too. I'm just I'm just not about this default value thing because it could be anything. Like, I don't want to set a default value for the nonce. I'm not going to provide it. And right now, by default, it just automatically provides it. Am I really loud? Should I turn this down? Maybe that's better. Yeah, so, okay. I think this finally looks good. I think this whole class looks good. Let's just see. Promise, 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 promise. Okay, I think we have successfully converted this into promises. And we haven't had any bugs reported, so fingers crossed. Save it. Wait a second, refresh the server, which for some reason takes a long time. So yeah, so right now all we did was, originally I had written this local storage file to use no promises because I knew it was just going to use, as the name implies, local storage. Things that are synchronous, meaning they don't take any amount of time rather than that split second when I require it to occur. So I request an item from local storage, and boom, it gives it to me. I don't have to wait at all. But I changed it to using promises in case I want to use asynchronous functions. Basically, instead now I could easily sub in a network call instead of something that takes like a split second to do. So now we're loading our page up, and I'm waiting to see how everything goes. So now, if I wanted to, if I was so inclined, get cart, instead of using this get session storage object, I could do something like return request. Let's just say there's a request object dot get http www.mysite.com cart dot then return promise.resolve cart cat. Right, so now I can do something like this, and the API would never have to change. I don't need to use local storage. I don't need to use whatever. I can change the backend that actually contains the data to any kind of different service I want. And in fact, I think that means I should rename this file from local storage to something like session storage. Come on. Spinny wheel, spinning. I have the spinny wheel. You can't see the mouse, but I have the spinny wheel. That's my I have the spinny wheel face. Okay, I'm going to change the name of this file. I'm going to change it. I'm going to change it up because it's, again, it doesn't use local storage. I need something more abstract. It doesn't, that's not what it does. Instead, I'm going to say it is session storage. Boom. So now it's going to be session storage, and I'm going to rename the name of the actual class from local storage to session storage. And what is it doing now? So we go to API file, we see, not local storage, I want this to be session. Checkout reducer, local storage, session. Cool, so now there's like no indication at all from this API. No indication whatsoever. Ah, shit. For some reason the rename function didn't work very well. I have to do it manually. API.js. WebStorm, that should have worked. Okay, so now this class, session storage, gives absolutely zero indication of what the backend uses. It's totally abstracted. All the information to determine how I'm storing information about the session, things like the shipping address and the measurements and the payment nonce, that's all encapsulated in this class. And that's the key. I'm not tied to any particular implementation now. I don't need to use local storage. You don't see the word local storage anywhere. And for all I care, I can easily sub out a different kind of backend. And it's simple. That's the key. That's the key. Like that is the secret. Like to having like good development. Good development. It's just putting things in like modular components. It is the secret. Okay, so this looks good, but now that I've converted to promises, I need to make sure everywhere I use this actual class that it's expecting a promise. For example, checkout reducer. A reducer is like a difficult abstraction to swallow. It transforms one thing into another thing. So it takes state as input and produces a new state object. So state is, for example, let's say the user types in their name as Taylor, and then they change their name to John. The reducer actually converts, the reducer would get as an argument the old state, which says name equals Taylor, and the new state, name equals John, and merge them together. And that might sound kind of boring, like it doesn't do anything, but what if it was something more complicated, like the current name is Taylor, and the new name we delete, and we don't want that value to be empty. Instead of just setting the new state to the old state, we need to do some kind of different logic. So we can set the old state to, the old state was name equals Taylor, and then we can set the new state to be name equals enter your name. So it's not always as straightforward, and that's what reducers do. Or, yeah, a reducer is. So session storage. Okay, so we have all these calls to session storage, which return, instead of a measurement map, this will instead return a promise to a measurement map. All right, and this is kind of a hot mess, because now I have like 10 calls to these functions that return totally different values that will throw an error if not used properly. So what I have to do is a little bit ugly. So what I have to do is convert all these to promises. So instead of normally before this use promises, I would say get measurements and boom, it would return immediately. Now it could take 10 minutes, it could take 30 seconds, it could take half a second. We don't know, we don't care, but we need to convert it to that asynchronous code style. So to do that, we have two options. We can use promise.all, which accepts as inputs an array of promises, I think. Let me check the API. Hold on, stand by for Titanfall. Also 90% of programming is just Googling it. What's this? Come on. Promise.all. This method is useful if you want to wait for more than one promise to complete. Given an iterable, aka a fancy word for an array, fulfills the values at the fulfillment values an array with fulfillment with respect to the original positions in the array. If any promise in the array rejects, the return promise is rejected with the rejection reason. So here we have our promise.all bleh, and then it returns bleh. So we will use that here. Promise.all session.getMeasurements, boom. Session.getAddress, boom. Session.getName. What's the better keyword for this? Session.getEmail. You get where I'm getting at here. Now, the reason why I'm about to not like this approach is because it requires me to maintain an order to the promises. So it's similar to the bag of parameters problem, where right now this returns an array of values, and the first value you know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about. All right, so this code totally works. But if for any reason I were to go like this, my day is ruined. Now it won't make any sense. This will throw an error. It'll be bad and not good. So I'm just like not that big of a fan of doing this. But considering the alternatives, I don't think I have a choice. So this is a balance, right? This code is kind of unstable, but it's super short and makes a lot of sense. And it's kind of worth the instability for its terseness. The other thing I could do is much longer and kind of more complicated. This is option one. The other thing I could do is return a local. So, I actually probably won't even write that code. I have to see, is there reduce? Yeah, there is a reduce function. Reduce. Promise.reduce. Reducer initial value. I have never done this before. Given an iterable, arrays are iterable, or a promise reducing the value using the given reducer function. I've never done this before. This looks cool. If the reducer function returns a promise, then the promise is awaited before continuing with the next iteration. Oh. So what I could do here is instead return an object, like the bag of parameters method, but because I wish I could point. Because the reduce function runs in series rather than parallel, not really worth it to me. Not really worth it at all. The result of the promise is awaited before continuing to the next iteration. Promise that I will start calling the reducer as soon as possible. This is why you might want to use it over promise.all, which waits for the entire array. Promise.reduce. I'm not going to change that. I'm just going to leave it for now. You know what? I'll put a Toto. Which is just like a little reminder to do this later. Okay, so I'm going to leave this right now. I'm going to change this. I'll leave the syntax. Cool. So we've now converted to using promises. But now we have to move all this code into here. Oh, but you know what? Damn. The reducer can't be asynchronous. Oh, that's so bad. This is so embarrassing because I was like so in the zone about what I was doing. Oh man, that's so bad. That is so bad. Okay. So I don't think the reducer can be asynchronous. That means that I have to return a value from it immediately. I can't wait for any kind of code to complete. It has to be return value as soon as the value is ready. Which is a bummer. Which is a real bummer. Okay. Let's go back down the rabbit hole. So this is called when I do an action of initialize checkout. Let's look at the initialize checkout action. Initialize checkout. Load api.fetch cart and products. Fetch cart and products, right? So right now, the initialize checkout, this is the opportunity to do something asynchronous. The initialize checkout calls API and it fetches the cart and the products that we need. I'm going to add the functionality to fetch the data that's in local storage to this API call. API is a class that I wrote just like session storage that encapsulates the idea of doing something to get data from the server. You can see right now that it uses, you can't see right now, but you can see right here, it uses a REST API, so it makes a request to the server using that URL. But if I wanted to in the future, I can make it use something like Firebase, which is a database service, or something like session storage. It could use anything you want. The point is it's encapsulated in a value. The bad thing to do would be to write something like this. Right? I've locked myself in now to using a REST API, and if I want to change, then I have to change everywhere I would use this function. It's not a good way to do it. So I'm going to add a new function to API. The new function is going to do two things. It's going to call fetch cart and products, and it's also going to call all of those promises that we just wrote in the last local storage class file. Okay, so let's go to API. So this is the API class we've written, and it doesn't do anything fancy. It's just a wrapper around the logic to request things to the back end. I'm not sure if I should show people this, but whatever. Okay, so I'm going to add a function called, make sure it's not already here, initialize checkout. This is going to return a promise, which is going to be, I need to add a new type. So fetch cart and products returns, okay, I'm going to add a new type because this is already not well type annotated. So I'm going to add types.js. Let's put a splitter in here. Whoa, where am I? So types.js. This is where I have global type annotations in the what was it called? Session storage class. I defined a type annotation in that class, but sometimes I want global type annotations that aren't just going to be used in one file. I put those here. That's how I did it. So export type. Let's call this checkout. And I have so much trouble spelling this word. Initialization? I have so much trouble spelling the word initialize. Okay, cool. There's going to be a cart. There's going to be of type cart. There's going to be products, which are of type array of product. And now, now it's going to include a measurement map. And it's going to include an address. I'm not going to put a question mark in front of address or in front of measurement map because I have default values set into those. Could bite me in the ass later, but I'll leave it. Add my import statements. Oh, nope. Excuse me. State types, address. Is that where that is? Cool. Address. Local name. Or no. Name, string, but it's going to be a maybe. Sting. Email is going to be a maybe string. Local. I keep naming it. I keep seeing this name, and that's what I want to name it. These guys up here. I'm going to say this is email marker, is definitely going to be a marker. No may be needed because I know that I have a default value. Phone is going to be of type phone. And a nonce, which is going to be of type maybe nonce. You know, that word's not so bad now that I say it more. I'm waiting for my IDE to recognize that I should import this. There we go. Boom. Boom. Sweet. So, popping back over to our API class, we are writing initialize checkout, and this is going to return a checkout I think I just get excited like halfway through that word, and then I just can't spell it effectively. Okay. I'm blowing up. Hold on. Gotta text back. Distractions are terrible. Okay, so initialize checkout. Now, what I'm going to do is, like I said, call fetch cart and products, and at the same time, I'm going to call all those local session storage functions that I created that return promises, because this is my chance to do something asynchronous. I'll be honest, I was trying to sneakily respond to this text message, but... Okay. Inside jokes. Okay, so let's go back to checkout actions. So again, we need to do two things. Return promise.all. So the two promises we're going to use are API.fetch cart and products. And you know what? Let's add a new API route for, let's call it fetch session info, which is going to return a promise of session info, which, once again, I have to define the type. You can see it can be a little tedious, but it's super important to define types. It's just, your life will be so much easier. Boom. I didn't want to do that. Boom. So now I have this. This is what's going to return from the session info. So like you see, like tiny little components. Each thing is like a tiny little component. So instead of having a big function that like returns all this stuff, like break it out. So fetch session info is just going to return these few things. I mistyped the word streaming for steaming, and wow, that's okay, Google. That's super embarrassing. As I said that to my mom. Okay, cool. So this is I'm gonna do all the actions that I did in the reducer, which is this, and move it here. Boom. Measurements, address, name, email, marker, phone, mouse. So now I'll just return the promise. Import. Come on. There we go. No, damn it. So now so let's look back at my type annotations. So this needs a address, marker, phone, nonce, name, email. Address, measurements, measurements, address, marker, phone, nonce, name, email. Didn't write that import manually. Imports. Imports, down, 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 down. Okay, so now I have this API function, fetch session info. That's going to actually call all the functions in my session storage to pull all the data that's in there from wherever they live. But it's my little secret, they live in the session storage, but they could live somewhere on the server if I wanted to, and I'd have to make a request to get it. Oh, chest cracked. Oh, look at that typo. That's brutal. So this looks pretty good. Oh, you know what? These are going to be question mark values. Nonce, not sure of. Email, not sure of. And name, not sure of. Okay, so now I'm going to do two things. Fetch carton products, and then fetch session info. What I'm going to get back here is an array, yeah, and cart and products. That's what this type's gonna be. I should probably make a type annotation for this, but I'm feeling kind of lazy. Okay, so 0 and then const session info. Okay, cool. Oh, you know what? Oh, I did forget this. So you have to add type when you import a type. I don't know why, but if you forget it, it is a terrible error to track down, and I forget constantly. I forget constantly. Look, I forgot it all here. All these. Type. 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 And then I also forgot it, I bet, and I bet I forgot it here too. Didn't I? No, good job. Okay. Back to our API. I'm going to reduce my windows. Okay, so initialize checkout. Now what we'll do is return promise.resolve cart products. We're going to merge these objects. And there we go. There's our initialize checkout function. So we fetch cart and products. It returns to us an object which has cart and products. And we also call fetch session info, which calls the local, or not the local storage, the session storage class we just wrote. And returns all the information for the current session. My face does not look good when I take a sip of coffee. And that's that. So now we can go back to our checkout actions. Select rabbit hole step complete. Now we wind back out. So now instead of on initialize checkout calling fetch cart and products, now we're going to call API dot what was it? Fetch. Oh damn! I forgot what it was called. Initialize checkout. Let's change that. How about fetch? I like the word fetch. Initial checkout. Fetch initial checkout. Fetch initial checkout data. Fetch initial checkout. Dot fetch. Oh, we're making fetch happen. Sweet. So now the API is going to do all the work that our reducer did before, which was incorrect. The reducer should not have been calling any kind of session storage or local storage functions. And now it's going to get the data from the local storage where we defined it. So popping over to checkout reducer. This Toto has to go. Now, in our initialize checkout call, right, because that's what this action does. So once we call the action, it does the load function, which fetches the checkout data, and then it calls this reducer to see how it should update the state. So now our payload is going to be of type checkout fudge. Did I get it? Did I get it? Oh, no. Did I get it? Yeah. Check out initialization. We need to add type. If anybody has an automated way to do that, that would be amazing, because I hate adding the word type. Okay, cool. So now what we get from the action and payload is, I'm going to double window here. And I'm going to reference our type annotation. So you see why this type annotation is useful. What I'm saying is this payload is going to be of this type. And if it's not, the program will throw an error to tell me something's wrong, which is amazingly valuable. So it's going to be of this type. So I know it has cart, products, measurements, not a good speller, address, marker, phone, nonce, name, and email. Did I spell measurements right? You go away, green underline. Did I really spell it wrong? I didn't. Yeah, that's what I thought. Cool. So now, change this to measurements. Cool. Change this to address, phone, name, email, marker, and nonce. Now, I'm going to set this to name, because I think I'm expecting a non-null value here. So this OR syntax just means set it to what's currently in the checkout, or set it to the name value I got from my data, or set it to just an empty string. I don't think I can have a null value for name in this state. I don't think. Cool. That looks good. I think we're ready to test again. So rabbit hole complete, testing begins now. I don't use any function tests or test-driven development. I don't like that. So just waiting for it to reload. Waiting for it to reload. The best part of development, the waiting process. I don't have the best computer, which is why it's very slow. I have a MacBook laptop, which I don't like. I don't like Apple products, but I'm forced to use them. I'm not going to talk about that now. Okay, so I'm ready to test. So our server's running. Let's see what happens here. It's just very slow. Come on. I guess I will talk about that. So I don't like having to use Apple products, not because they're bad products, just because they're so expensive, and our budget's not very good for that kind of stuff right now. So I feel like I have no choice though because they're Linux based and they don't make Photoshop for anything but Windows and Mac. And my ideal setup would be if they made Photoshop and Illustrator for Linux, in which case I would use Linux, but whatever. Okay, it looks like we're working. And boom, here we go. Finally, we finally have a working checkout. Now, like all this code I wrote didn't do this right here, but you can see like it didn't error out. So this looks really, really good. Let's see how our shipping stuff looks. Workflow crash. Don't go slow, don't go slow. Great, great. This looks pretty good. It's not actually this slow, it's just slow because of the stream. Although the name is empty, that doesn't look right. The name should not be empty. Let me see what's in my state. Let me see what's in my local storage. Come on. So, address, email, name. Ooh, okay, so this is a perfect example of like, there was no errors thrown, but now we have an unusual, some kind of unusual behavior here where it's not letting me, it's not populating the name correctly. This is not good. Somewhere our code is broken. And I think that it is probably occurring. It's always better to try to reason out where you think the bug is rather than just jumping right into the debugger, in my opinion. So let's take a look at our session storage class. Let's look at our getName function. If we're not on the client, return promise.resolve. Otherwise, we are on the client, return item.getKey, getItem, nameKey. NameKey is name. What are we missing here? Okay, so let's move up the chain a little bit. API, fetch session info, measurements, 0, address, 1, name, 2. Okay. And we add them all to here. Now, I wonder, let's check, what did we return from our function call? Name undefined, interesting. Name values it 2. Session storage.getName. Let's see, what if we do, you can't see my debugger right now, but that's what I'm doing. Local storage dot get item name. It returns Taylor Stein. I don't know. God, I wish. This is the hardest part. I have no idea where this bug is occurring. Don't like that. Let's throw this into the debugger. I wonder if I can maybe... Hold on 1 second. I'm going to add this. I'm going to add this. Add this thing. This is the Chrome debugger. Duh. Okay, so this is what is actually being shown in the browser. This shows me like what the browser is doing, so I can figure out why my code is not doing things correctly. It is the reason why my computer runs so slow. So, okay. We have here, so what I want to look at is why the API call to initialize checkout, so this call right here, fetch initial checkout, I want to know, or I'm sorry, fetch session info, I want to know what that's actually returning. So we can actually open this in the browser, open this api.js class, and it's going to look a little different than it does in the IDE because this is the compiled version of the code. I do that on purpose so that I can see actually what the code looks like rather than what I think the code looks like, because again, this code has to be turned into actually compiled code. I'll have a lot of tabs open. Close, 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 close. Am I not closing these? Close all. Okay. Okay, so I can actually set breakpoints in here, so I'm going to do that. So let's just search for fetch. Come on. Search. Fetch session info. Okay, there it is. There's the function. And now what I'm going to do is put a breakpoint right here, if it will let me. Breakpoint. Come on. Go. There we go. Breakpoint right there. And a not fetch, wait, fetch session info? Do I have two fetch session infos? No, not there. Come on, go faster. Fetch session info, okay. Right there, and right there. Right there. Now, refresh. So once it hits that execution point, it'll just stop so I can take a look at it. Once it refreshes, slowly and painfully. Come on. I don't like that. It is usually very slow. I can't end the stream on a bug. It makes me look bad. So close to being done. And it only took me an hour, almost 2 hours to add promises. Amazing. Okay, so we hit the breakpoint. Now, and let's just take a look to see what kind of variables we have right now. This actually isn't the breakpoint I want. I'm going to continue. Go, go. Okay, cool. So what did we get? This will tell us the actual value of some of the variables that we're working with. Address, undefined. Email, undefined. Values, defined. So let's see what we got in values. In values, it looks like 2, which should be our name, is undefined. So this problem must be occurring in session storage.getName. Am I completely missing this? Am I blind right here? But this does not look like it should be difficult. Let's open the session storage function. Obviously, we need to move one step lower to determine where this bug is. Session storage, come on. Come on, session storage. I believe in you. And let's take a look at get name. Oh man, this is painfully slow. This is absolutely brutal. Come on. Go. Go. Come on. There we go. Go. Down. Down. Not. Right there. Nope. This is 90% of the problem. Have to be really patient. Come on. Come on. Come on. Right there. Right there. No. No. Let me try again. Get name. Come on. Oh, I'm also not listening to anything in my headphones. I just like to I keep them on because it's like a comfort thing. Like it helps me stay in the zone, and I don't know. I never really listen to music though. So I like to wear them. Like if I'm like this, I feel just really really uncomfortable. Well, obviously, but like it just feels like ugh. So headphones are key to this operation. Also the mics on the headphones. Okay, cool. Finally, we have the breakpoint set. So let's refresh again. Refresh again. Come on. And this is what I'm doing instead of going to church today, I guess. If that happens at 1. Almost there. Okay. So let's just scroll down very gently. And let's just call this function local storage. Get item name. That looks pretty good to me. What happens when I do this? What's wrong with that? That returns the name as expected. What is happening? Fetch session info. I wonder if like I could go back and see session storage, get name. Get name and get email are the same exact thing. Oh no, impossible. Do you see what happened? Do you see what happens? I am missing a return statement. Ah. Damn it. Oh my god, that is the worst thing that can happen. That is the worst kind of error. Normally, that should have told me that the promise was created in a function and not returned from it. I have no idea why it didn't. That is brutally painful. Worst kind of error. Oh, and I had to get the debugger going, and this is daily struggles. Okay. Let's hold on. I realized you couldn't see what I was doing. Okay, so I was looking through get name, and what I was doing was I was comparing it to get email. So see here we have get email, I'm looking at it, is it the same? And I noticed right here, we're missing a return statement. And it should have warned me and said that, that a promise was created but not returned, but it didn't. I don't know why. Since we're missing a return statement, all I have to do is just add it, and then we're done. That is the worst kind of error. The worst. Cool. Let's try again here. Take two. Here we go. And it's just like those little things, like the tiny little details. That took me like 10 minutes to figure out. And it's like the little things just add up. And then, like, I don't know. That's what takes so long. That's why development takes so long. I look forward to when computers can just do all this for us. Come on, hurry up. Come on, hurry up. What are you doing? There we go. There it is. There's the name. It uses promises. I can convert this API into anything I want. Name's back. Let's check payment. I'm not sure if I have a nonce set up yet or not. This I'll save for a different time, securing payment input. I'm not going to deal with that now. But the point is that looks good. Measurements. I should be able to add a measurement. I have to change this color scheme. I'm not a big fan. What didn't it like? Invalid. Invalid. Well, that part's not implemented yet, so that's a different topic for a different time. But the point is that now all this data is saved in local storage and it uses promises. So when I'm ready to convert it to being stored on the server, it's just like a simple one-step process. So that surprisingly took me 2 hours, and I am exhausted. So I think I'm going to stop that here for now and look forward to implementing checkout and learning about how I did this next time. So, bye.